Hello and welcome to Points in the Podcast. I am Elias Schuster. As always, I am joined by Matt Rooney. Matt, we sit here today. A win streak snapped, and there you go.
What's
Fireworks.
I'm
I can't
celebrating?
do it. Yeah, it doesn't. I
I
don't get it.
Could
It's
it be
just
my camera? Is it my camera?
I don't know. Maybe
I don't
for
know.
those listening, and we figured this out last show somehow. We live stream this. Go to YouTube, BetSperts Media. You can live stream us
Do it.
when we
Do it.
do this
No, it
show.
doesn't want to do it. Damn.
And there's motions that Matt will do in the camera. A thumbs up, what was it last week? A
But I
laugh
just did this time.
sign.
I just did two thumbs up, and it did fireworks. I don't know
Yeah,
what's going on.
so I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what it was, but
It's
the
freaking
for
me out,
some
man.
reason you do a little motion in the camera, and then behind you some stuff happens. Matt just did a thumbs up. They were fireworks, and it seems a little bit ironic because we've kind of gotten the opposite of fireworks from the
Well,
Chicago Bulls the
Kobe
last two.
White's been shooting off fireworks. So
Sure,
that's why it's
yeah.
fun. We'll
So
say
okay,
it's for
there we
Kobe
go.
White. Kobe White's in the title of this show too. So there we go. That's why.
So then
Good
Kobe.
inference, camera.
Yeah, Coby White is has definitely been giving us the fireworks. We will get into him a little bit later. He's definitely on the agenda for today's show. Um, and where the Bulls stand right now, they had a 4-game winning streak. We talked about the 3 games that they won last week. They picked up one more against the San Antonio Spurs. Very much expected. The Spurs have been in a downward spiral. Them and the Detroit Pistons
I was
haven't
worried
really.
about that one though. I was very worried about that one.
I was worried too.
And
It
they
was
were
close.
losing for a while.
Yes, definitely. And I think what we saw, though, however, was why San Antonio has been on the losing streak they've been on. And, they weren't able to hold on there in the second half. And the Bulls, meanwhile, their veterans, Vucevic, had a very strong game against against the Spurs' inexperienced front court. DeMar played solid, and Coby White obviously continued to play well. The young guys in general in that game, again, lifted the team to victory. So that was encouraging. But then, unsurprisingly, after that, we sit here today on with the Bulls on a 2-game losing streak, and it's because they had a brutal back-to-back. I should make that known first. It wouldn't be easy for anybody in the league. It was really tough. It was Milwaukee one night on Monday that went into overtime. So you're having DeMar play 40 minutes, Kobe's playing 40 minutes, and then you the next night you have to go face the defending champion Denver Nuggets. And while they caught a little bit of a break with Jokic getting suspended, Jamal Murray or ejected, Jamal Murray out. That's a championship DNA. That's a team with championship DNA. And they looked like it last night. So we can share more thoughts. But that's a little wrap up of where the Bulls obviously stand right now. And I want to start though this show with something a little bit different, and it's because the Bulls gave us something a little bit different this week. On Tuesday, they ended up announcing a new Ring of Honor. So what that will consist of is an inaugural class, a 2024 class, which will be inducted into this new Ring of Honor on January 12th. That will be the official date. They will be honored at the game against the Golden State Warriors. And this new Ring of Honor is created to be another way to recognize and acknowledge some of the biggest names in franchise history. Not only players, but we've seen coaches added, we've seen executives added in this first class, and we've also seen teams. Entire teams will be inaugurated into this Ring of Honor. So again, what does that mean? I don't know. I guess we'll find out a little bit more. I'm assuming they'll probably build a little bit of a section in the United Center for fans to maybe walk through and see what that looks like. Maybe there'd be something hanging in the rafters. They are going to have a little exhibit from January 10th to 12th at the United Center that even the general public can go and see to kind of interact with that inaugural class. Not the people exactly, but they'll have memorabilia there. They'll have information on all of the new members. So it's an interesting addition, Matt. I think it's what I will say about it is I'm happy to see it from the perspective of there's a lot of names the Chicago Bulls have not necessarily recognized at the level they should throughout their franchise history. You look at Bob Love, Jerry Sloan, Michael Jordan, obviously, and Scottie Pippen. Those are names in the rafters, but this organization has been very stingy when it comes to retiring jersey numbers, and there's been a lot of other big names. So this Ring of Honor will recognize some of those players and people that we feel like maybe the organization could have done a better job with.
Yeah, that's you hit it right on the head. That's why I'm happy to see it, because like Derrick Rose wasn't going to get his jersey retired. Luol Deng wasn't going to get his jersey retired. Kirk Heinrich wasn't going to get his jersey retired. But like, this is a way to bring Joakim Noah probably not getting his jersey retired. But like, it's a way for the organization to still bring back those guys and kind of give them their moment in the sun and their thank you for what they've done, what they did with the Bulls. without it just being, oh, hey, look, Joakim Noah's in a skybox. Let's put him on the Jumbotron and wave at him, which is kind of what they've done in the past, which, I mean, it's better than nothing, but it's a good way to officially honor these guys who put together, pretty unbelievable. One era was unbelievable. One era was a lot of fun, but really those two, the era of the '90s and then the era of the Rose years and the early 2000s with those teams are a lot of fun. That probably have a lot of guys that are worth bringing back and kind of giving a send off to,
For
giving
sure.
one last round of applause to, their recognition without having to put their name up in the rafters, which probably not
Right.
deserving of, but it's most teams seem to have
Yeah.
it, and
Some
it's a good thing to have.
Yeah, some players, there's some organizations that give anybody a jersey retirement. So there's some fans that may want to see someone like Derrick Rose, who was the youngest MVP in franchise
Hmm.
history, get his jersey retired. I mean, that's a debate that fans have all the time. Joakim, obviously one of the biggest fan favorites that there's been in Chicago. He's someone I'm sure some people would love. I think Rose's case is a little bit stronger, but regardless, you're right. These are guys that probably wouldn't have gotten that when we base things off of how has this organization handled those players in the past. So this is a way for them to have some sort of acknowledgement. And again, what does that look like? We'll find out. We'll find out in January when things are how big of a deal they make it seem, and what those players receive. All the players that did get that are part of this class, which I'll read the list here in a second. It's 13 people total. They all were invited. Those living members were invited to come to the event. There will also be some off-court stuff that fans are not involved in, like a gala and things like that
Hmm.
to celebrate these people. But I'm very curious to see who shows up. So and maybe we could talk about that in a second. I'll give you the list here for the people
Scotty going to show
listening.
up?
That's the real question. So there's 13 names, like I said. And yes, not all of them are unfortunately with us anymore, but these are the names. You have Jerry Sloan, Chet Walker, Bob Love, Artis Gilmore, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Tony Kukoc, Dennis Rodman. Those are your players. Then you have Phil Jackson, Jerry Krause, Johnny Red Kerr, Tex Winter, and Dick Klein. So that's your group who will be in the 2024 class. If you're wondering, if you feel like some names were snubbed in that group, every 2 years is when they're going to have a new class. So it's not going to be every year. That would be a little much. They'd be probably pulling at strings or pulling at teeth to fill this guy up. But every 2 years, there'll be new players inducted. And also, there's a set of guidelines, which there's a whole website. Go to bleachernation.com. We wrote an article on this, and then we shared that bulls.com/Ring of Honor website that gives you all the details. But long story short, you got to be retired for 3 years to be eligible. There's all these requirements that you have to meet. You have to have played for, or I actually don't quote me on the retirement thing. However, you have to have played for the organization at least for 3 years, and I'm pretty sure you do have to be retired to join the Ring of Honor. So there's going to be qualifications that people have to meet, and
And it was cool. I was listening to the 670 post game show last night with Alyssa and Bill Wennington. And Alyssa was asking Bill about it, and Bill is not even going into the Ring of Honor, but they're bringing back that whole, I think it's the 95-96 team,
yes,
to be a part of that night. And he was even talking about not even a guy that's going. It's not like they're inducting the whole team, which they could have done. They're not going to do that, at least not right now. But just hearing him talk about how cool it was going to be for those guys, and like pretty much every one of them, even though not all of them were going in, to kind of get that honor. It seems like something that with at least most of the players is going to be a big hit and going to be something very special for them. He was talking about he's got the night off, the 12th. They're bringing back the whole
yeah,
team for a gala, and they're going to be honored and all that stuff. And it just sounds like to guys like that, and everybody's getting in, but also everybody's going to come back and be a part of the celebration. It's going to be a really cool thing for them. So it's a good thing for the Bulls to do, and probably a little bit overdue. But
yeah.
when have the Bulls ever really done anything in a timely fashion?
Right.
Right
I
way?
think that's I have two thoughts on it. One of which is what, like you just described, which is, hey, I think this is a good thing. I think they haven't done necessarily as great of a job as they could have done on not only keeping up strong relationships with a lot of these people
Hmm.
from the past that have given the that made the brand what it is today,
Hmm.
but like we said, just not recognizing them in a way that they should. There's an easy case to be made that somebody like Dennis Rodman can have a jersey retired. Someone like Tony Kukoc can have, like, there's other players from that 90s era that could be up there in the rafters that have not been. So this is good to see from that sense. The other question that I have here is not only who's going to show up. I'm curious how big of a deal this actually becomes, but also, like, what is the well, we can talk about the motive in a second, but what I should say is, what do you think about who's going to come? Because we talk about the team, the whole 95-96 team. That was the one team,
Yeah.
the entire team that will be inaugurated, and are inducted, I should say, into the Ring of Honor. But, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen are on this list, right? Those are the two big names that everyone's going to have an eye on. I would have to imagine most other people will show up. Dennis Rodman was at the United Center for the first time for a Bulls game in a decade or so the other week. And then, you have Tony Kukoc, who's very much around the organization still at times. Like, we've seen him plenty. So there's a lot of people I expect to be there. But Jordan and Pippen are the two that you have to think about. And are the Bulls going to be able to pull out the big guns here and for their first to make this really feel like a big deal? Are they going to get either one of those guys in the building?
I don't think they do this if Michael Jordan says he's not going to show up.
Okay.
I don't think that I don't want to say what's the point, because that's not totally true, but I don't think they do this, put it a month out, if they're not pretty darn sure that Michael Jordan's going to show up and willing to do this and be in the building. That's my gut feeling.
I would love if you were right. I think it'd be
it's a very
cool.
weird, watered down ceremony to honor that team and him if he's not there, or if the majority of these guys. Scotty's a whole different animal. Like, I know Jordan and the Bulls obviously didn't end on the best of terms, but doesn't really feel like they're necessarily on bad terms anymore. Scotty's a whole different scenario.
Like
it seems like Scotty's on bad terms. There isn't anymore, but like there is, because he won 6 championships and his name's up in the Raptors still. Scotty is on bad terms with everybody.
Yeah.
So I would go out. I would venture a guess that he's not going to be there, but like, I feel like if Michael says he's not going to come and Phil Jackson says he's not going to come, like, you may not go in on this, or maybe you say that, if your jersey's up in the rafters or name's up in the rafters for the coaches, like, you're automatically in the Ring of Honor. So those guys are already in. They don't need induction. Maybe that's the way you get around it.
Oh, okay.
I don't think that you advertise honoring Michael Jordan, Phil Jackson. I'm not going to say Scottie Pippen because he's a different case, but I don't think you advertise honoring those guys if you don't expect them to be there.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I would love, like I said,
or
I
have
would love
insurance that they're going to be there.
Right. I would love if you're right. I think that's what you said is a good point too. Like, I don't know if they think that far ahead, but the way you put it is great.
It seems it seems like terrible PR and would just put you right in it would make you a laughing stock if you induct Michael Jordan into your Ring of Honor and he doesn't show up.
Well, they probably release some sort of statement like, "Oh, he couldn't make it, but he said, he said."
Still, it would still be a really bad look for you.
Yeah, obviously you want him there. He's the biggest name. I just very curious because we all know that the Scottie Pippen situation too has been weird ever since The Last Dance has come out. He's targeted Michael publicly multiple times. I don't even know the last time that we've seen those two together, in front of a camera or whatever. So my guess is that Scottie at least is not going to be there, and or maybe he shows up if Michael doesn't come, but. I find it hard to believe that we're getting both in the building. Maybe the Bulls do the unthinkable and, they
hug it out at midcourt. They hug it out on the pole at center court.
That would be something. And they're both holding the trophy. I don't know.
Steve Kerr walks out and makes them shake hands and kind of brokers peace between the two and walks out from the Warriors bench.
Yeah, but it's it's disappointing because you wish that those two had the strong relationship. You want to see it, and I'm not saying that all these guys need to be friends. I get it. They did what they did in a working relationship. You don't need to be best friends off the court. I don't need Michael and Scottie to be on the golf course every day together. And however many years later, 25 years later. But I think that you still wish that they could be in the same building. So this will be an interesting test to see if we get those people. But
if they're not, it is actually you found out how competitive really Michael is during The Last Dance. I feel like with how he just so bluntly spoke about it still however many years later. I think you're starting to see too just how competitive that entire team was, because Scotty's still mad 20 years later that he's not getting the recognition he deserves because he was such a great competitor.
Right.
I think that's kind of what it stems from too. So just man, to have been a fly on the wall at those practices and just to see what that was like between those two, between everybody, it must have just been. Phil Jackson deserves every honor in the book for keeping those guys together and on the same page and competing on the same page for a long time.
I mean, we see it today. It doesn't happen anymore. You don't see those Steph and Clay and Draymond are the last kind of bunch to.
And even then, it's partially because Clay is Clay's ACL blew out and he hasn't been he's been a shell of himself.
Well, also who's there? Steve Kerr.
Steve Kerr's there.
He knows what it looks like to keep a group together. Yeah. So
Draymond is a psycho, but he's not as good. He's not a part of a big three anymore, and he's throwing punches now, but it's
Going taking
just
swings at Yusuf Nurkic because why not? I guess he has no real need to, but you just got to assert your dominance there.
he's got to keep up his rep.
Yeah, you got to keep up the reputation. So yeah, at the end of the day, Jerry Sloan, like Chet Walker. Well, not Sloan. Sloan's in the rafters, but Chet Walker, Artis Gilmore. These are guys that I have always thought deserve more of name recognition around the organization. So super fun to see that they are both going to be honored in their own way with this new addition. So overall, I like it. The last thing we should say is, Matt, let's put on our conspiracy hats here. Is that the organization knows where they're at right now? It's not pretty. We've talked about it plenty on the show about where this team's at, what they need to do, which is likely a rebuild. Is this
what happens first? Zach LaVine's traded, or the Ring of Honor night happens?
Ring of Honor night probably first.
Yeah.
Yes.
I guess January 15th is that.
January 15th is the other day. Yeah, but I think I just think conspiracy hat here. Is this just another way for them to take the spotlight off what's really happening? They continue to live in the past. They say, look at all this great stuff we've done. So hey, don't feel like you need too much winning right now, because remember all the winning we did in the past. I just feel like this franchise has a way of shoving that in people's faces when things aren't going well, and this could be the ultimate example of that.
They do, and I'm not saying it's a good thing that they do it, because it's certainly not. But we're not Knicks fans, but I would imagine in bad years with the Knicks, they're probably doing similar stuff, like trotting out legends and franchises that are going through downtimes that are historic and historically successful. I feel tend to just lean on stuff like this because they can, because it is a break glass in case of emergency situation. Yeah. Unfortunately, the Bulls have been, I shouldn't say the Bulls have been down more than the Knicks, because the Knicks haven't done anything in the last however many years either. But it's just kind of what these franchises do. And it's annoying, but I also get it. And yeah, it's a little bit of look at my right hand while my left hand is, broken or something. But it is what is it. You can see through it. And I think the organization knows that they can see through it. Is it a cheap way to maybe get people in the building a little bit more? Sure.
Yeah, probably. But I think, I did see some, some fans, of course, online are kind of not mad is not the right word, but they're making comments about how it's oh, of course they're blah, blah, blah. And I'm just look, at the end of the day, this is something that takes a year or more to construct, to build. It's not like they put this together last week and we're oh, the team sucks, let's make a Ring of Honor. This is a big project. It's a big thing that they need to put together. So if they didn't see the team start 9-14 and decide, hey, we're gonna add a Ring of Honor.
This has clearly been in the works for longer.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's a great idea. I'm excited to see certain names recognized, talked about.
I don't like that it's every 2 years. Just do every year.
Yeah, but there's so few. I mean, look, it's one franchise. There's only so many people.
Yeah, but you also don't need a class of 8 people.
Yeah, you could do one person.
Literally, you could give Derrick Rose his own year when he retires. You could give Joakim Noah his own, or put those two together.
Sure. For sure. That'd be really fun. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I don't mind the 2-year thing just because it is one franchise, but I see what you're saying. You can just boil it down, give one person their moment in the sun, and it could be fun to have that one person recognized on that one night or whatever have you. Yeah. So we'll see what it looks like on January 12th and that weekend or the days leading up to it when they have all these other events. It should be interesting to see just how big they really blow this thing up.
Gonna try and go to that game, I think.
That'd be a good call. I would love to be, especially if Michael's there. I mean, that's a fun, and it's gonna be I bet you it's like a 5-10 minute standing ovation.
They should keep it a secret if he's. I guess they should keep it a secret either way. No, they should though, because you're gonna sell that game out anyways.
Yeah.
Exactly. If it doesn't get out either way, whether or not Michael's gonna be there,
even if there's a message on the video board from him. Yeah, the fans will be okay with it. It's because you'll see all. But
imagine if you don't know if he's going to be there, and then he's the last one introduced, and you get the starting lineup from North Carolina, and Michael Jordan runs out to the court.
Matt,
I'm going to that game. I'm going.
Okay, all right. You gotta and also give them a call so they do that. You need to make sure you.
I got some
Use your producer skills.
I
I'm
was
with
gonna
you
say
on this.
I got some connections. I'll talk
You
to
got
some
some
people over
producer
there.
credits. Yeah, you got
Yeah.
we know some people close in the weeds, so we can get that in the works. Okay, let's move on here to talk about the current team because we don't want to just give the organization what they want and focus on the past. We're here to talk about the present, Matt. We're here to talk about the doom and gloom, the rain cloud that
I'm not as
continues
doom
to
and
hover
gloom. I'm really
over
not.
the. Well, look, at the end of the day, the 4-game win streak was nice. It was a breath of fresh air. These past 2 games as well that they lost, it continues to at least they
They were
played the same way.
competitive. They
Yeah,
ran
yeah,
out of
yeah.
gas against it. Like last night, they just ran out of gas. Like that's gonna happen, especially with no Caruso. The bench shortens up. Io didn't have his best 2 game stretch. Like DeMar was clearly out of gas after 41-10 against the Bucks. Like they just ran out of gas in the fourth quarter, and you could tell like they had tired legs because the shots weren't going in, and they were coming up a little bit short, and that's what happens. But like the Bucks game was just an awesome basketball game that they happened to lose in overtime to a really good team because according to the report afterwards, a couple calls that should have went their way went Milwaukee's way, and that happens. But like
They played hard.
the report we're going to get to is a red flag, but again, it's one report. But overall, even though the 4 game win streak snapped, I still take the last 2 nights as like positive steps in the right direction for building blocks for the future.
Sure. So I don't disagree with you on that. I think that there are definitely more positives to take away over these last 2 weeks than there were to start the year, including the last 2 games that they lost.
Mm-hmm.
Where my concern sets in, where the doom and gloom sets in, is the fact that I worry about how this front office is perceiving the recent play, right? Because to us, we sit here and we say, there's encouraging things for the future, meaning
Mm-hmm.
it's fun to see Coby White ball out. It's fun to see Patrick Williams have take a step in the right direction. It's fun to see the style of play change in the way it has to a more up-tempo, up-tempo style. It's fun to see the 3-point field goal attempts go from dead last in the league last year, finally creeping to league average around 17th. I know that's not great, but that's a big
We're
step for the Bulls.
average.
Yeah, that's a big step for the Bulls considering where they've been the past couple of years. So there's definitely encouraging stuff here, but I still have concerns, which I've said on the show, that while we sit here, we see those things. Oh yeah, this is great. Invest in this young talent more. Let's use this as building blocks for something down the road. I'm scared they're going to see it as building blocks for right now, for a way to continue to invest in this win now mentality, to not do what they should, which is, hey, let's cash in on the great play that we've gotten from DeMar DeRozan and get a pick and a young player for him at the trade deadline instead of paying him the next deal that's going to be hefty considering how well he's performed the past couple of years. And hey, let's make sure we're picking up phones on Alex Caruso just to listen, because at the end of the day, if someone gives you that over the top offer, you have to consider it with where your team's at, which again is what, 9-15 on the season.
I want to play devil's advocate here, and I'm going to do something I don't like doing, which is maybe trying to give. I'm not going to say give the Bulls the benefit of the doubt, but maybe just to be the opposite side of this coin here. You
Yeah.
said they should be picking up the phone to hear if they get a deal that blows them away for Alex Caruso. Maybe that's kind of what they're doing. Maybe the calls they're getting right now are the Lakers saying we'll give you a first round pick. And quite honestly, if I'm Arturas Karnisovas and you want to give me, I don't know what picks they have available, but like either a 2029 first round pick or this year's first round pick, which is going to be in the end of the first round for Alex Caruso, I'll probably just keep Alex Caruso.
Yeah,
If you're going to
sure,
call me and offer me 2, that like maybe that's kind of what they're doing. Maybe the offers they're getting right now are the underwhelming, one either first round pick 5 years down the road or first round pick now that's the back end of the first round. And if that's the case, I am kind of like, you know what? No, I will write it out with Alex Caruso then, because at age 29, I mean, he's still got some stuff. He's not done. He's still got stuff left in the tank. He's still under a very team friendly deal for the next couple of years. And he does kind of help set a culture that you want to build with your young players. Now, I don't believe that they're just ignoring phone calls. I don't believe that AK is just hitting the ignore button when he sees a text about, Caruso for a 1. But if they have a high price tag for him, they should maintain that, because I think they should, because every contender is going to be lining up to talk. So I think there's a possibility that is just a negotiating tactic, that it's like offers aren't nearly where they need to be right now, and we're more than happy to keep them, because quite honestly, if you don't get fair value, you should keep him. If it's
right.
just a first round pick this year from the Lakers or the Sixers, okay, cool, I'm just going to keep Alex Caruso
Yeah,
because it's not.
especially since he's on a good deal next year.
And the Demar is a different story. You should be looking to move him for just about kind of whatever, anything that is a first round pick. I would probably just be like, all right.
Yeah.
But didn't you had a piece earlier this week that they're kind of still far apart on an extension, that might be coming to a head sooner rather than later?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I heard the reports, came out this week that they just reiterated what we've already known is that
Hmm.
that they remain far apart on the extension, and
Good,
because of that,
because
a
the
trade,
Bulls should be far apart on what he wants.
yeah, I think it was Mark Stein, longtime NBA insider, runs a great Substack and a podcast with Chris Haynes, who works over at Bleacher Report, and
Those
I,
guys
I
are great.
yeah, they give out great intel, and they were just reiterating what again we've already known, which is that they're not close on a deal, and reminding us that hey, because they're not close on a deal, and we're nearing mid December, late December, it's more likely than not that they're not going to reach a deal on an extension, and the trade deadline stuff becomes real. You have to talk about it. So here's the thing. Everything you're saying, I get. I think that there can definitely be a level of gamesmanship here from the
Hmm.
Bulls, especially on a report like this going out, which is we're turning away phone calls, whatever. But
Now they don't
and
deserve the benefit of the doubt. That's where I will give you that.
yeah,
They've
and
done
so
nothing to earn that.
right, which is where I'm going to come from, which is where my side of things sit at, which is I think I fear that this isn't just gamesmanship. This isn't just a front office doing the smart move and saying, we're hanging up the phone calls because the value isn't high enough. I feel like if that was the case, then that could be the report. We see plenty of reports like that, even when they are trying to trade somebody, which is like, yeah, we're getting, the reports are they're getting lots of calls, but nobody's offering, they're not willing to trade him for that. Last year, for example, we got reports about Alex Caruso and how they were only going to trade him for 2 first-round picks or more. Like that was what we were getting at last year's deadline. So where I come from is the angle of they don't want to trade Alex Caruso because of also what you said near the end, right? Which is he's a great culture guy, and he's somebody that can help, make sure that everyone keeps playing hard, and also maybe they can add pieces around Caruso and DeRozan and Vucevic and continue to
Hmm.
try to be a contender or something like that. Which I just think with the results that we continue to get from this team, even now with Zach sidelined and we're getting a closer look at what the team looks like. Which yes, they've played better, but
Hmm.
look at the last 2 games. They shot 41% from the field. They lost to both, the Bucks and the Nuggets. Yeah, they were back to back. Yeah, that's hard, but if they won those games, it was going to be a fun surprise, like they did originally when they beat the Bucks
Yeah.
or whatever. But it's not like those wins should tell us, hey, they're actually going to be a contender without Levine on the floor, and if they build around DeRozan and Vucevic, who are both in their mid 30s, and DeRozan, who's going to be 35 years
I
old.
still can't. I still can't believe they're building around Demar. Like there's the report that we talked about, the fact that he's going to want max money, if not max close to it, for however many years. Like they have to know that they're not giving him that, and it seems like but you have to know you're not giving him. That's that. If that like that, I think that's the one sign of this is nothing against Demar. I love DeMar DeRozan. If he was 31, I'd say give him the max right now and
Sure.
keep him around for a while. But he's 35. If that happens and we hear, oh, they're getting closer on an extension, that's when I will fully hop onto your side and be just completely pissed off. But I don't know. It's all going to stem from like the Zach trade's going to tell us everything.
Well, what if
It's going
it's
to tell
like
us
yeah.
everything we need to know.
Well, let's get to let me quickly share that report, which came from Michael Scotto over at Hoops Hype. And, he was talking on the Hoops Hype podcast about where things stand with the Bulls. And his report, this isn't necessarily new information. He talked about this in a piece that he wrote in November. But, I'll reiterate here what he said in the podcast,
Mm-hmm.
which, again, he was referencing his old reporting. So this was the quote. That has been the sentiment that rival are. So if you're trying to keep DeMar and Vooch, you'd almost be more in a win now mode. That's the sentiment that rival executives around the league have gotten. When I wrote that top trade candidates piece recently, we touched on that. They're not necessarily looking for straight draft capital. They're looking for players that can help them win now and maybe a pick down the line if they could add to their cupboard. So again, what he's saying there, to paraphrase, is in a Levine trade, they're looking for players who can help win right now. And, of course, they want to, it's always ideal to add draft capital. But where my question lies is, okay, what's the motive? If the motive
Mm-hmm.
is I want to add draft capital and young players, great. If the motive is I want to add win now players, and then if I get some draft capital, great. Like that's where I start to have some
Yeah,
major
fair.
questions, because the motive for me when I hear a report like this, and where all the concerns lie, is that the motive is, again, we think we can continue, we can just flip this thing and flip LaVine and somehow get better and somehow make sure that we, somehow keep ourselves in the playoff hunt and be a consistent contender or playoff threat in the years to come. I don't just see a world where that makes sense, or where it ends up coming to fruition. If anything, you're then just wasting, I think, an asset in LaVine by not prioritizing young talent and draft picks. And then you're not only wasting that asset, you're wasting the potential assets that are DeRozan and Caruso by not trading those guys when their value is going to be, high. Because DeRozan's value, if you pay him at all, and he's about to be he's going to be 35 at the start of next season, like you're still probably going to get the best value you're going to get for DeRozan right now. And it was going to be higher last year if they did something. They didn't. But now it's like the value for DeRozan likely is only going to go down in the eyes of the trade market. And then Caruso, that might stay the same. That's why it's what you were talking about earlier. Like, it's not the biggest deal I still think they should, and it's going to be bad if they don't. But
I think they should have a very high price tag for him.
Yeah, I agree.
That's great. But if they don't, I'm keeping him.
Right. And I think because next year you can at least probably flip him again because he's on an expiring deal and stuff. And you can still probably get good value for him as long as he's, continues to play well. So, but the DeRozan thing, it's like, this is probably the highest his value is going to be, and it's already not as high as it used to be. But if they're in this win now mode, which, this report suggests, then it's saying that they're not going to cash in on that and take advantage of the opportunity that they have in front of them. So it keeps the carousel of mediocrity going when you see reports like this, right? It's like,
I'm just interested in what the win now players that they're considering are. Are there win now players that are? The Lakers are the team that keeps popping up just because it just seems like everybody is sending Zach LaVine to the Lakers, and like, if the proposal from the Lakers is Austin Reeves, Rui Hachimura, and one of their like a late 2020s first round pick that actually might be valuable, like those guys do help you win now, but those guys are also younger NBA players that aren't just 34-year-olds that you're picking up to try and help you make a run this year.
Yeah, but it seems if there's Austin, like I wrote about this at Bleacher Nation, if Austin Reeves is part of the conversation, I'm a little more interested,
Yeah.
But most of the reports have suggested that on fake trades they don't want to trade Austin Reeves, and then it would likely be a trade of D'Angelo Russell and Rui Hachimura, and that is the type of player.
Why would D'Angelo Russell just makes no sense for the Bulls, though? They have their point guard.
Well, exactly. And so but that's the thing. That's the type of player I'm concerned they'll try to seek out in this trade, which is, maybe not exactly D'Angelo Russell, but someone who's in their late 20s, who, we know who they are at this point. It's not like they can't be helpful on some team, but he's owed $18 million next year. And it's a player option, which he'll likely pick up. And that's the type of guy that I'm scared they'll try to get for LaVine, is a couple of those guys, which is like, here's your late 20s, someone who just is, and it's not like he wouldn't fit next to DeMar. He could. He's a shooter. He's another ball handler for this team. So like they see that as like, oh, okay, well, we can add him and continue to keep trying to win. So that's where it gets a little bit scary. And I think you can make a case like not make a case. It's true. They're going to have to accept back some salary, right? Like they're going to have to accept back some, because LaVine is owed 40 something million. So to make the deal work, you have to take back somebody that's probably a veteran who's making decent money, right? So it's not like, I understand you're going to have to take back somebody like D'Angelo Russell, but it all goes back to the motive thing. Is that what they want though? Because if it's like, are you accepting that because you have to get the deal done, and then you're getting your other young assets, and that's the headline piece of the trade? Or is it they think the headline piece are players like D'Angelo Russell and guys who can come in and immediately impact winning, quote unquote, which is, a 500 level basketball kind of mindset. Yeah. And it's when I see more and more reports like these surface, which is, rival executives and even NBC Sports Chicago's Casey Johnson has, dropped little nuggets like, yeah, the Bulls may want to get players back for LaVine that help them stay competitive and things like that, which to me just doesn't make sense with where they're at right now. You can't because they're not competitive now. So
Yeah.
that's the thing. It's like this idea of staying competitive. You're not competitive enough right now. So how are you going to, you just want to stay this way? That doesn't make any sense to me.
It's just we can speculate all we want, but I'm just like I'll know it when I see it, like when I see the deal, kind of, if that makes
Sure, sure.
sense.
When you
Like
see the Levine trade, it will say what we need
yeah,
to know.
especially with like the national trade proposals that you always see. Like I feel like they've been trying to send Zach Levine to the Lakers for the last 3 years, and every time you see a proposal, it is just this obnoxiously bad, like all the Lakers bad salaries for Zach Levine. So like
Yeah,
I every time I see one of those, I take it with a grain of salt because to me, and again, it might end up being D'Angelo Russell and Rui Hachimura in a first round pick, and that would be very unfortunate. But like it has just always seemed like, especially national insiders and national reporters have wanted to get Zach Levine on the Lakers for a bunch of hot garbage salary. So like, it's hard for me to take other teams.
yeah.
Like if you start giving me Sixers rumors or somebody else, whatever, that might upset me or I might lift an eyebrow. But I've been seeing these hot garbage trade proposals to the Lakers for the last three. I'm not even joking. The last 3 years now. I'm just
Yeah,
not
yeah.
like I'm so numb to that. I just don't buy them. Like I'll believe what happens when I see it. I don't buy that those are actual deals. To me, those are just what they've
Well,
always been.
yeah, and I do think the
People
Bulls will
trying to
play
get
enough.
Zach to the Lakers.
Yeah, they'll play enough hardball. I think the Bulls to make sure that the deal's at least okay. But I 100% hear you out. I know what you're saying. This is where the trade talk stuff can get exhausting once it drags,
Mhm.
especially with it starting so early with Levine, and now we have to sit through 2 months of it or whatever. You're
What is it with Chicago sports and trade talks, man? It's all we
I don't
have.
know.
Like
Yeah, it's all we got. We don't have any
here,
good play.
here, it's Levine. The Bears, the last 2 years, it's what are we doing with the number one pick and all. The Cubs, it's all I think we're in the middle of the Cubs offseason. I'm not even mentioning the Sox because they don't make any deals. But like, it's just always just like, who are we
Yeah.
trading? How much are we going to get back for this?
Yeah, well, yeah, and the trade talk is just but that's a lot of times how trade talk goes too. When you're the team, when the Bulls are the team trading away, the most proven asset, the technically the best asset or whatever in the deal, presumably, people are just gonna want to all of a sudden veer off in a way where it's like, all right, well, he's a really good player. How can we get him to a really good team? And
Yeah.
here are all the ways that we can make that happen, even if that deal doesn't make sense for
Hmm.
the team that's trading him away.
It's people just throwing number salaries into a trade NBA trade machine and be like, oh, see, this works. That's the deal. It's like, no, that's not how that works, actually.
Yeah. I will say with the Lakers stuff though, it 100% like that situation it just continues to get dropped any time around Levine. Some of it makes sense just because he's been connected there forever. It's Clutch,
It's the
Clutch has
clutch thing that makes
it's the
sense to
Clutch
me.
thing that connects it a lot. And it's not like he wouldn't fit next to LeBron and AD. Like he would. He would be a very talented off-ball scorer to give with those guys. Like there's definitely ways that the on-court fit makes sense. And we all know they're in win now mode. Like they're gonna, as long as LeBron's there, they're going to try to add somebody. And
Yeah.
Levine's under contract long enough where once LeBron retires, like it still gives him maybe an AD Levine thing, which
Yeah.
is nothing. And especially if Levine goes there and learns from LeBron, becomes more of a strong decision maker, which most players do when they play alongside LeBron. So. There's a world where it's a fine, it would make sense for LA to do it, but the clutch connections are impossible to ignore. And I am curious if that just ultimately is where this ends up, which is sometimes there's just so much smoke. It was like when Lonzo Ball was connected to the Bulls, for almost an entire
Hmm.
year before he finally was there at the moment, and then they got tampering fines because the moment it happened, like the free agency opened, he signed with the Bulls, and we basically knew that was coming for almost a year because the previous
Couldn't
off.
they have just waited like 2 hours? Like, did
I
we
know
have
it.
to announce it a minute after free agency
At
opened?
least it was only a second round pick, whatever. But yeah, I think it's like sometimes there's enough smoke. We've seen it plenty of times where something just ends up happening. So maybe on January 15th, guys become available and boom, like a trade gets done the next day. Or maybe some other teams arise. I still think it's possible that some other teams arise. We talked about it on the last show, like Levine, especially if he comes back at the beginning of January, gives a couple of strong games. You have some of these teams that are desperate with the playoffs and the trade deadline nearing. That I do think some other people will throw their hat in the ring, but it's quite possible that this just ends up with where it all started with,
Yeah.
which was always the Lakers. Even when he was an unrestricted free agent, people were talking about the ways that he could end up in LA. So maybe that's just where this whole thing ends up.
Seems
All
like
right,
it, but we'll see.
yeah, we'll see where it all goes. And we talked about the hanging up on the report about the Caruso thing. It's just it's I don't love the hanging up the phone calls, but I do hear you out. It could be a strategy, and there's no way for us to know right
Maybe they're
now.
just hanging up when the offer isn't what they want.
Yeah, I mean the report was they've just been shutting down everything. The report's but they've been
Playing
shutting
hardball.
down.
We got a lot of time before he needs to be traded. A
Yeah,
lot of
so
time.
that's that, and that I keep writing that in all of my trade posts, which is look, we're on December 13th. It's rare that we're even having these conversations right now. And most players aren't, or most teams, aren't in the weeds yet and feeling desperate enough to get deals done. That stuff. That's why there's a favorite February trade deadline. That's why it is
Mm-hmm.
when it is, because that's when executives are going to start feeling the seat warm and seeing where their team
For
is
sure.
actually at in terms of the playoff hunt. All right, last thing I want to wrap up with here is just more of the team's recent play, right? We talked about how the last two games went. Definitely a missed opportunity on Tuesday night with Jokic getting ejected. And Matt, what did you think about that? Because the Jokic ejection was very it was very shocking.
It seemed like a ref show thing. It was like
Yeah, I hate that.
it just seemed like the refs who wanted to be the star of the show there.
Yeah, and it happened. There was another call last night in the Dallas Mavericks Lakers game where this player hung on the rim. I can't remember exactly who it was. It might have been Dante Exum, but hung on the rim for a second, and it was just to get his balance, a little extra authority. But another one of those stupid technicals called for him doing that, and I feel like that's happened a lot this year. There was another instance with Jokic earlier this year where he was ejected for saying something. There's a lot of refs trying to make sure that their presence is felt, which
I think Vuc's comment. I think it was Vuc afterwards who said something along the lines of he should have just swore in Serbian.
yeah, that is a thing. I feel like a lot of people. All right, I have heard that other players will use their native tongue to get away with some
That'd be
stuff. But
fantastic. It's a
yeah,
great idea, Vuc.
and Jokic said after the game, like what I said. Some people don't even get technicals for, but sometimes they do. So I whatever it is, what it is. So he lived with it. I'm sure winning the game helped, but please, I was sitting there wanting the Bulls to win, of course, but I still don't want to see Jokic have to leave the game like that
Yeah.
because there's tons of people in that building who are there to see Jokic, even if they are Bulls fans. They were there and bought tickets because they wanted to see the defending champions. They wanted to see a two-time MVP. So it's that's stuff that the NBA's got to figure out and make sure
Agreed.
that these refs understand, or that these refs just aren't choosing what to do emotionally. Like that seemed like a huge emotionally charged decision to just send him out of the game. Like, I'm sorry that he, threw out an F-bomb at you. Like, so be it. It's okay. You can, they're spewing that stuff on the court all the time at each other. It is what it is. But that's a missed opportunity still, regardless. He leaves the game. Jamal Murray's out. Bulls aren't able to, compete with that young, or not, well, yeah, young, I guess, because there's a lot of depth on that Denver Nuggets team, but they all play well. They all play hard. Something that I wrote down in our morning post about this game was that the Nuggets actually shot a season high at the rim, not in efficiency, but in terms of just their field goal attempts at the rim. It was the percentage of shots that came at the rim. That was a season high, and it's because they knew that they could just get by the Bulls' first line of defense. The perimeter defense was really weak with no Alex Caruso out there. They just kept putting their head down and getting inside. And I think that was really the difference for me is even though the Bulls won these little categories, which, they won the fast break point battle against the Bucks. They won the second chance points battle last night. Or maybe it was vice versa, whatever it was. They were doing little things. They were given the hustle. They were given the effort. But at the end of the day, the shot making wasn't there, the execution wasn't there, and the defense really struggled. And it all comes down to that for me with this Bulls team is, they're always going to be in a situation where it's one thing or the other, right? That's what it always feels like. And this should be a reminder, these two games, this winning streak, of that to this front office to me. Not that, hey, what's the potential of this existing core, but there's a lot of holes here. At least we're getting some fun stuff from the young guys. That's what we can build around. Let's not be silly and build around the other stuff.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I don't know, they're just. I was going to say that I think part of last night especially was especially the defensive breakdowns, not having Alex Caruso in the lineup, but also and I love Alex Caruso. I've said that however many. Oh, Winnie's making another appearance. if your team's defense suffers that much from Alex Caruso not being in there, granted tired legs factored in, and they're playing the defending champs, but also the defending champs were without their two best offensive players. Like that speaks to a lot about what you got going on, and that's I don't know.
It's the
That's
same thing
just
with Lonzo. I thought the same thing with
yes.
Lonzo is when Lonzo goes out and your team
Now
suffers that much.
they didn't suffer that much against Milwaukee. Defensively, they were a little bit they weren't as sharp, but also Milwaukee's got Dame and has Giannis and is just can score at will. Um, Last night was a little bit of a sign though, like, all right, yeah, like this is fun, and I still think this team, if they hit their ceiling, is a can be a fun team, but they're not by any means a good win now, like deep team. The depth just isn't really there.
Right. Yeah. Depth is a problem, and that was really exposed against the Nuggets, who, again, like we said, they have young guys. It's not like their bench is full of veterans. Like that was a
Mhm.
lot of young guys playing really, really well last night.
And Reggie
And
Jackson just annoyingly had
Reggie
like
Jackson,
the
yeah.
best game of his career.
But Christian Brown had a great game. Julian
Yeah.
Strother had a great game. Like they're finding these young guys out there that are playing well. And again, a lot of that goes back to that culture that they were able to, when you play with a superstar like Jokic, like you understand that when he's out of the game, that there's a level that you have to still play to, right?
Yeah.
And so there shouldn't be. Conversely, the Bulls, Caruso's out of the game, and they can't continue to play to that level. And
Mhm.
and I understand Caruso's a really gifted player, but so is Jokic. He does it,
Yeah.
Jokic is an even more gifted player, and he brings a lot more to the table. But the team still, is able to rise to the occasion, and that's something that this Bulls team is just not capable of right now. And the final thing on the show that I want to wrap up with, though, is if we want to end on a positive side, is I really do think, win or lose, what we're seeing here is a seemingly a genuine breakout from Coby White.
Yeah.
I think that we've seen flashes in the past. We've seen those little moments. We've talked about him before on the show, but in previous years, he's had 10-game stretches where he's scored a ton of points. He's looked really good. But this is different to me. Like I was
He's doing
there.
everything now.
Yes,
Like
that's
he's
the big
doing
thing.
everything. It's not just he got hot shooting for a couple straight days. He's been hot from three for the last 12. He's what keeps extending that franchise record. But he's getting 5+ rebounds a game. He's dishing out 4 or 5+ assists per game. Defensively, is he ever going to be great? No, but he's showing that he's getting better and at least is understanding what he's supposed to be doing, and in terms of positioning and all that. Like he's getting much better there. Like he's become such an all like this is a hot streak of his entire game,
Yeah.
not just, oh, he's shooting really well right now, let's feed him till that fire runs out. Like when he stops shooting so well, which is he's going to go through a slump, everybody does. I'm still confident in everything else that he's been doing well, that he's still going to impact the game in a positive way. Whereas in the past, when the shooting went away, he was just kind of there.
Yeah, I agree 100%. When he wasn't just knocking down some catch and shoot shots, like he was out of the game. He was,
Mhm.
and at this point, like we talked about, defensively, he's still just gonna. We've talked about on the show too. Defensively, it's not always gonna be there, but he is still like a top 10 in the league in offensive fouls drawn. Like he's throwing his body out there. He's
Yeah.
trying really hard, and so effort's half the battle defensively, and he's got that. But and the rebounding, like you said, is there. Like he's having games where he can grab 7 rebounds a night. Like he's definitely being active in all facets of the game. And I think for me, I was specifically in the building for the Milwaukee and the Milwaukee game from 2 days ago, and what really jumped out to me watching him, again, it wasn't the shooting, even though that's been remarkable. And it wasn't even necessarily just the all around stuff. It was just a patience and confidence that I've never seen from him before. So
Yeah.
the confidence ties into every facet. It ties into the defensive energy, everything. But then the patience was the big thing on offense for me, because he would bring the ball up and he was surveying the field, if you will. Like he was trying to find the holes in the defense for him to manipulate. And a lot of it was for him to score. It was, how can I get the right, we know the Bucks are going to switch, or I know that Brook is going to drop deep to the basket. So here's an opportunity for me to hit a fadeaway mid-range jumper, or I have Dame on me. I can blow right by Dame. Like, so that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to get downhill and then I'm going to create from there. Like this was a vision that he had on the
Mhm.
court that he has not had before. Sometimes with Coby in the past, it was a play at one speed and just kind of play a little bit out of control, which we see from a lot of young guys, but we kind of saw that consistently over 3 or so years from Coby, which was, is he ever going to get past this point of kind of, playing at one speed, not being able to take a step back and have that change of speed?
It
which is
seems like to me, we use this reference with quarterbacks, I feel like all the time in the NFL, like the game has slowed down for him. It seems like the game is slowing down for him, at least mentally. Like and that comes with the confidence you're talking about. That comes with knowing who's in front of him, knowing when he's got Damien. Like it just seems like everything is starting to fall into place and kind of just slow down for him mentally, so he's not moving at a million. The brain's not moving at a million miles an hour all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's just way more of an understanding of how he can how he can read the defense and react to what they're doing, whether it be for
Hmm.
him to score or for him to initiate some other action and understand when he shouldn't go at the rim. And
Yeah.
so I think that's been super encouraging. That's the type of stuff that doesn't really go away. Like that's an understanding that
Hmm.
isn't going to disappear, even though, like you said earlier, he's gonna have a slump at some point. The shot's not going to be there sometimes, but the way he's going to understand that in that moment,
Yeah, the
and then
awareness and the
understand how.
understanding doesn't really tend to like once you get that, you get that. Like,
Exactly. Like, and if he knows he doesn't have it one night, there's other ways now that he might be able to find, a certain way to impact the first. And which this also ties to some of the improved ball handling that we started to see at the end of last year. Like he's crossing over dudes. His first step is super explosive. He's
mhm.
understanding when to, take a break for the rim. He's having a career high in field goal attempts at the rim this season. It's also a career high in effective field goal percentage, which kind of ties into more easy looks at the rim. So it's the decision making, not necessarily in terms of his playmaking, because like we said, it's not like he's this gifted true point guard, but it's the decision making and the way he's approaching the things offensively and the way he's approaching his scoring, which we
Yeah.
always knew his tool bag was pretty big. But now we're starting to see it at an NBA level, closer to what we saw when he was at UNC. He's third. I'll just end with the fun stat of the day, which as of recording this December 13th, he's third in the NBA in 3-point makes. So we talk about all this
Not
other
bad.
good, yeah, we talk about all this other good stuff, but it does come down to that, right? He's right now one of the best 3-point shooters in the NBA. It'll drop off a little bit probably, but also maybe it won't because he's taken deep shots that we haven't seen from him before. Or if we have, it was, just a fun little shot here, but these are more consistent.
Mhm.
He's pulling up in transition with complete confidence. So he's shooting the best of his career, and the only players shooting better than him are making more threes right now are Steph Curry and Luka Doncic. So
Not bad company, I've been told.
yeah, he's not gonna be one of those guys, but I think that there's a real chance here that not only, like we said, is this a big breakout, but maybe he is just gonna become one of the better 3-point shooters in the NBA. The potential for that was kind of always there with him,
Mhm.
but now it's really starting to all come together. So if there's anything to be optimistic about, I think it's Coby, and I think it's the fact that he's locked in for 3 more years, or this is for 2 more years
Yeah.
after this on a very inexpensive deal, all things
Oh yeah.
considered. And that's something that the Bulls can build upon and should build upon.
But I like this. I
Moving
like this whole ending on a positive note thing. It's
forward.
nice.
We should try to do that on the shows moving
Yeah.
forward.
Maybe that's what we'll do. We'll just do the pot. We'll call it. It's our last segment of the show. The positive note. We have something positive every show.
Yeah, maybe.
I
All right,
like
I
it.
think that's a good note. We'll always end on a positive note. Okay,
Yeah.
well that's our positive point, if you will, for a
There we
point
go. I
for the
like that.
points for
It's
the
a
podcast.
positive point.
Positive point. Okay. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. The schedule stays tough here. 2 games against Miami Thursday and Saturday. I will be out of town tomorrow, so there will be the one show this week. We've usually been sticking to one just with how the team's been playing, but maybe we'll go back to 2 depending on how things look next week.
That means
Um,
I'm tweeting on Thursday night, people. Get
if
ready
you
for it.
follow Bleacher Nation Bulls on
I
Twitter,
think I'm on a
then
good run with that. Did I have I did they win last time too? I think they yeah, I had the
I think
Jazz
they
game, I
did.
think. I think
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
2-0. No, I'm 2-1 because I think the second time I did the Sixers game, they lost like they were down 21-1.
It's okay.
Whatever.
It's
It's fine.
okay. You at
I've got
least,
a nice
hey,
I got a good
considering how
track
many
record.
times they've won this year, you've at least seen one of them, so that's pretty
That's
good. So
true.
yeah, you will have Twitter duties and some writing duties, but otherwise, everybody, thank you always for listening. You can read all of our content over at bleachernation.com, and we'll be posting there every day. But we will be back in your ears next week. Thank you for listening.